We received the news with absolute shock. Shock that somebody so close to us could be so brutally murdered. Shock that it was right next door to us, more or less.
It just floored me, really floored me. I remember my mother breaking down and crying as well because she was very close to Greg. But for myself, the first thing I thought of was, this has got to do with his role in the Red Cross and something to do with the coup.
To be quite honest, I thought it was a robbery gone wrong. Because there were struggles with a lot of families after the coup of 2000.
The most likely thing was that extreme disapproval by some bizarre person of their lifestyle.
I thought that it was a fuck buddy gone wrong.
Well, I suppose I made an assumption it was something to do with his sexuality that had led to this. I mean, we'd heard rumours of all sorts of parties and functions up there that were risky, and I suppose we weren't all that surprised that something like this had eventually occurred, but not to the extreme brutality of it, as we subsequently found out.
Fijians don't normally take a cane knife and just chop somebody up, you know. At least at this time, okay. Cannibalism was there before Christianity came, but that's gone. But this is a new thing, a new and terrible horror. It's horrible.
In a repressive space, that's the most extreme form of punishment for being gay here, and so that stayed with me for a long time.
In the possibility that you could be killed?
Oh, yes, definitely.
You were losing sleep, weren't you?
Yeah, it was scary for all of us. Friends of mine were being called John on the street. Why, John Scott? They'd call us. So it was almost like a warning. That's how we were feeling at the time. It was like, well, keep on behaving like that. This is what happens to people like you. That's the feeling we were getting from the community.
It was a premeditated murder, that's what we're being told. They went in, busted the door down, killed the two, and then ran back out, throwing the knife in a nearby bush and I think a piece of cloth with some blood on it.
He told me, there's a breaking news at 12 o'clock. That John Scott and Greg Scrivener murdered. What? He touched me and he told me, I did that, he said. I didn't believe him. So that's a Sunday, and whole of that time, he was asking me, a cousin in Fiji, and we used to call his father Tavale. And he called me, Tavale, do you believe me? And I said, Tavale, I didn't believe you.
And right on the screen, I was going, man, this could be him. It was funny that when I get to think of it now, why, out of everything else, that it dawned to me that it was Pete. Now, when I talk about it, and I said, you know, I believe that it was God telling me that it was him, and it never was wrong. And a couple of days later, the police came home. And when I saw the police truck, I just wept and I said, this is it. I was not wrong when it struck me when I was watching the news. Yeah.
So when I came in there, she asked me, Mom, haven't you heard? And I said, heard what? Haven't you heard that they are looking for Pete? And then, you know, I wasn't ready for that. And then she had to tell me what happened. That the police were looking for him because he says,
The person is now in our custody, is a Suva resident and was also an associate of the two deceased persons. We took him out to the crime scene, and what he told us, and as he took us through step by step, was very much consistent with what happened on the Sunday morning.
He was there with a group of police officers. And then, you know, just out of the blues, I just started crying heavily when I saw him. Then he said, "Mom, don't cry, Mom, don't cry." He told me, "Don't cry twice." So I just stopped. You know, why he was telling me not to cry when I was really pouring myself out. And I just looked at him, and that was it. Those were the tears that I shed after I met him when he was taken in as a suspect.
I had time to speak to him. I think it was bold. He was very bold to come out with it. And he said, you know, what I did did it for the good of the nation. I did it for the young generation because whatever they were doing was wrong. It's morally wrong. I don't think he has any regrets for what he did. I mean, he's asked for forgiveness. Yes, he's asked for forgiveness. Yes. Yeah.
Savua, he basically was the spin doctor that got the newspapers to behave in the way that they did, because he said, "Oh, well, apparently the killings took place at," and he said the certain time, and then he was quiet for a while, and he said, "Well, there was a lot of illegal activities happening at the house," and then the question started flying, "What illegal activities?" And then he started with all the videotapes believed to be homemade pornography, the white powder believed to be cocaine.
And photos, as well as more of an unidentified white powder in a search of the men's Suva home today.
People were focusing on the good side of Mr. Scott and his partner, Greg. But then people tend to forget that he's a practicing homosexual. I don't profess to understand everything about homosexuality. It's just that they tend to be more vicious than the normal heterosexual relationship.
Yes, scary.
I mean, in his allegations, what do you think his message was, Savua? What do you think he was saying?
They deserved it.
They deserved it. They're
That
good people.
was
They behaved terribly.
Resounding message. They deserved what happened to them.
Yeah. My God, this guy's justifying the death. He's justifying the killing in a very subtle and not so subtle way sometimes. I mean, Savua might as well have been a pastor, you know, with a white collar at his throat investigating.
In the end, the white powder was baking soda that was used to clean silver. And also the police said that they'd found pornography at the house, which included some incredibly boring holiday videos of mine. And a month later, they publicly stated that they had not found any pornography at the house.
The opportunity to paint John and his partner as sexual predators was one that the media lapped up. So, you know, sexual predators preying on vulnerable youths in the Tamavua area, that sort of thing, they would lap it up.
And it deflected attention away from, has a crime been committed, collect the evidence, prosecute the offender, gain a conviction.
Once again, it comes back to the acceptance of homosexuality. If there is an acceptance of homosexuality in the country, the police would have presented a more understanding picture to the media, and the media would then be the mouthpiece to the general public.
There are some who could not accept the way that John lived, but his long relationship with Greg was about the universal things in life that we all crave: trust, intimacy, companionship, and above all, love. Too often people concentrate on differences when they should be looking instead at similarities. May John's memory be a unifying one for all people in Fiji, particularly at this time.